just 5 days to go till the season kicks off in Australia for practice one. Just a week today, lights will have been out, the checkered flag will have fallen, and Romain Grosjean would have won his first ever race in Formula 1. Welcome back to our preview for 2019. Today, we're going to be focusing on Racing Point, their first full year in Formula 1. So it's going to be a unique team to look at because there is history within the team, but as of halfway through last year in the summer break, the team evolved from Force India into Racing Point F1. Last year they were known as Racing Point Sahara Force India Formula 1 team. This year they are Sport Pacer Racing Point Force. It's bizarre. It's bizarre, but mostly, as I will be calling them, it's just Racing Point or Sport Pacer Racing, whatever you fancy. There is more than just a name change at Force India Racing Point. I've already called them Force India, whoopsie daisy. More than just a name change. Driver change as well. A slightly different lick of paint with a little bit of blue splashed into the Pink Panthers. But the big change, as you can see on screen there, Lance Stroll joins the team. Esteban Ocon is out and Sergio Perez, the team's number one most experienced lead driver, remains with the team. So then, I like to look back at the history of these teams to try and help out new fans to Formula 1. But as you can see, there's not really a lot of history for Racing Point. As you can see on screen, and you will see this throughout the season, their official name is Racing Dot. It looks like it's not the word point, it's actually a point. So this is just to make it easier and more, well, I suppose, nicer to look at when it's Sport Pacer Racing and then a dot. It doesn't look as long, doesn't look as silly, but I just thought I'd throw that little bit of information in there for you. Based in Silverstone in England, Racing Point, their team chief is Otmar Zafnauer. Power unit they use is a Mercedes one. So Mercedes supplies both Racing Point and Williams. We've already spoke about Williams last week. Their first entry was the Spa Belgian Grand Prix last season, where they actually got a third and fourth place in qualifying, a second row lockout. A brilliant job there in Spa. Their highest ever race finish, however, is a fifth place. No podiums yet for the team, despite Sergio Perez last year getting a third place finish in Azerbaijan. The team's goals for this year are a little bit wishy-washy because over the past few years their target has been fourth place in the constructors' standings. But last year, going into administration, going into the summer, everything seemed to be, well, everything was up in the air for the team. So the fact that they were able to continue for the rest of the year was a bonus. And all their points were wiped, and they still ended up 7th in the constructors. So when I say wiped, they were wiped up to Belgium, and if the rest of the year, their points managed to get them up to 7th, only just behind McLaren. So their targets for this year, I imagine, will be to aim for 4th place, but I still think the likes of Renault, Haas, Alfa Romeo, I think, seem to have the edge this year. But throughout testing, this team had the least laps, apart from Williams, who didn't show up for 2 days, but Racing Point, of all the teams that did every single day, Racing Point did the least. And it's the team I always find, and I've said this for the past couple of weeks now, I found them really difficult to place where they're going to be this year because we just really haven't seen enough of them. But anyway, driver lineup, Perez and Stroll. A slight change this year. Esteban Ocon had been with the team for the last couple of years and had performed relatively well. Perez had the edge just last season in terms of points. However, many believe, and I would incline to agree with them, that Ocon just had the edge. However, with Lance Stroll's father, taking over the team, Stroll was coming into the team. Everyone knew this, and it was a question mark who they would keep. And they've gone with Perez. I think, look, there's going to be multiple reasons for this, but the two key reasons is, number one, Perez, well, was a key influential member of making sure that team remained for the rest of the season and helping Lawrence Stroll buy out the team, and Perez was influential in that, and I don't think, without his help, they would have been able to stay on the grid this year. So I think that's the number one reason, but also his experience. We saw last year Lance Stroll do a solid job, but as a team leader, was he really the best option? No, he wasn't. Is Esteban Ocon ready to be a team leader with only just 2 years experience? I don't really think it would have been a sensible option for the team to go with Ocon, considering Perez is a proven talent. As you can see his stats on screen there, 157 races entered, 8 podiums in that time with 529 points. Second place is his highest ever finish, and he's done that twice, with his highest grid position being 4th place. Born in Guadalajara, Mexico, he is a consistent driver, Sergio Perez, and I think that's exactly what the team need this year. What is Perez going to be looking for this year? Because like I said, we don't really know where the pace of the car is. And with teams like Williams, I said they need to be looking to get in points. Haas, I said they're really going to try and search for that best of the rest. I think Force India or Racing Point, I think their target as well, their target will be best of the rest. I think that's probably a little bit too much to ask for, but that'll be the target. Maybe 5th is a more realistic target for the team, but Perez himself, I think a top 10 overall in the championship. That will be his aim, and of course, he needs to beat Lance Stroll, because if that doesn't happen, then I definitely see the team bringing in Esteban Ocon. And perhaps halfway through the year, if this relationship between Perez and Stroll really doesn't work out, which many do feel, if Perez didn't get on with Ocon, how is he going to form a relationship with Lance Stroll? He's definitely a lead figure character, is Perez. How is he going to deal with this kid whose father owns the team? It's a really interesting dynamic. So maybe halfway through the year, Perez could be switched out for Ocon. So Perez's target is to, number 1, keep his seat, but also to impress, and I think top 10. Lance Stroll on the other side of the grid joins Racing Point this year after 2 seasons with Williams. 1 podium in his career. That was in his first ever season with Williams in Azerbaijan. That was a 3rd place finish. His highest grid position is 2nd place. A very good job that was back in Monza 2017. Again with Williams. 41 Grand Prix entered. That is 2 full seasons, and 46 points is not a bad tally, considering in both years he's had a pretty awful car. 2017 wasn't awful for Williams, but it was very wishy-washy. Some races it was great, some races it really was one of the worst cars on the grid. Still yet to prove what he's worth, Lance Stroll. I think he's an underrated driver, and I think a lot of people can't look past the fact that he's a paid driver and that he was rushed in to Formula 1, because in his first year, I do agree, his first couple of races were pretty awful, to be honest, but he really did grow on me, and I think he has done some fairly impressive performances. His first lap pace is very impressive, so I think he's a driver that has potential, and I think this year, being at a team like Racing Point with a teammate like Sergio Perez, is really going to help Stroll push on. But in the head-to-head, who do I think is going to have the edge, Perez or Stroll? I think similar to Red Bull, I can see this really just going one way, and that is the way of Sergio Perez. Again, I don't really want to have a go at Stroll, because I think Stroll will be fine at Racing Point. And I think, again, they're not going to be miles off in pace. And Stroll's target, similar to Perez, I think for Stroll will be to match Perez if he possibly can, and maybe aim for top 10 in the championship will be his target. Maybe not so realistic for Stroll, but I think Perez will have that edge, all depending on how that relationship within the team is going to be this year, because I think that is going to be the big story. It's such a shift in dynamic for the team, a team that was strapped of cash, had Perez as their almost the talisman of the team. They had Ocon, this rising star. Now that's all switched on flipped on its head, because they do have money now. They've got Stroll, who arguably is a rising star, but more of a paid driver, who he definitely now probably has more control over that team than Sergio Perez does. So how is Perez going to react to the fact that Stroll not only has more power amongst the team, but he also is younger? It's really going to be an interesting one. And things like team orders are going to be really fascinating to watch with Racing Point. So again, they're going to be a team that I am glued to watching this year, because I think really this midfield, Azerbaijan, Monza, this team could be up there in the fight, but races like Monaco, races like Bahrain, are they really going to be fighting at the front? It really is going to be fascinating. Let me know in the top right hand corner. You can vote who is going to win in the head-to-head. Will it be Perez or will it be Lance Stroll? I can probably already guess what that one is going to look like. Interestingly, yesterday our McLaren one, 85% of you said that Sainz would have the edge. So in tomorrow's video, I will update you on who won this particular poll. So don't forget, in the top right hand corner, you can press the little circle with an eye in it, and then it'll come up. It's very easy. It takes half a second to do. Always a little bit of fun. But that is it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.